Hi, I'm Chris, and I'm going to go over Google Forms in this little tutorial here to show how we can use Google Forms to do some really quick classroom quizzes. It's a great way to assess students' understandings and get some really good feedback through some of the built-in tools, and it's really easy to do. So what I'm going to do first is I'm already on the Google Forms page, and I'm going to just select a new blank quiz. I'm going to give my quiz a name here, and we're going to call this the Life on the Ice quiz. And this is Life on the Ice, Chapter 1. So there's my first question. And so here's my first question. That's my title of my section. And so my first question is going to be something like, where is the North? Type really bad, so bear with me. Pole located. So there's my first question, and now I can start giving them some options. And I've selected multiple choice. I found multiple choice is probably one of the easiest ways to start with quizzes because it gives you some really good summary information where you can look at responses that were consistently answered correctly and incorrectly to get some good feedback as to where the students might need some extra help. So multiple choice is a really good way to get some good analytics and get some good metrics back on what your students are understanding. So I think North Pole might be located in my backyard. Another place that might be located would be, say, perhaps the Arctic Circle. And then just ahead of the South Flagpole. So there's my three answers here. So what I'm going to do now is, we've talked about multiple choice, but here are some other types of answers you could have. You can have short answer. It's going to limit it to a couple of sentences, or a single sentence, paragraph, multiple sentences, multiple choice, checkboxes. Checkboxes will allow you to select multiple correct answers. So in the case of like A and C, or A, B, and C, or all of the above, you can kind of do with that with the checkboxes. Drop down is going to limit you to a selected list of answers. So they would have to choose one of these. It's very similar to the multiple choice, but it's a little bit different, just in the way it's presented. You can also have students upload a file. That's a little bit more advanced. And there's some other more advanced types of things that probably aren't going to be where you're going to want to start with on your first quiz. So these are this is my first question, and what I want to do now is I want to enter in an answer key here. So what I'm going to do is click on here. I'm going to say which is the correct answer, and we're going to say the Arctic Circle is the correct answer. And I'll add my question, and now you see my multiple choices. We already have the correct answer marked, and we can do some more with that later, and it's going to become really, really helpful. So the next thing I want to do is I want to add another question. So I'm going to go up here to the plus key here and say add question, and say which is colder, the North or South Pole. And again, I'm going to use a multiple choice here, and I'm going to list option 1 as North Pole. And then I'm going to list under here as South Pole. And you see there's this option that says Add Other. Add Other here will let a student be able to select the other and then fill in an answer that isn't already defined on the list. Again, it's not going to be super, super helpful because what we're really looking for in this case is we're going to look for some metrics to really analyze where our students are understanding or not understanding the material that we've covered. So you'll notice down here also that I've had this question selected as required. the previous question, we want to make sure that's also selected as required because we don't want students to skip any of the answers that we have here. So here's our two-part quiz, Life on the Ice, Chapter 1, with 2 basic questions. We can do more with this later. But right now I want to talk about some of the global options that we can set that are going to be helpful for us in receiving the information back from the students. So up at the top here, we've got our little gear buttons. We're going to hit our settings. And the first thing I want to do is I want to collect an email address. And that's going to give me some information about who's taking that test. Now, if you're in a district where you're not using individual student accounts, if you're not logging into Chromebooks, you might not want to do this. But in the environment that I work in, that's the thing. Students are all logging in individually into their devices in their Google accounts, and that's going to give me good information. What that means is now what I don't have to do, and what you'll see on my form here, is I never asked for the student's name because I'm going to collect that information automatically. Now, if you need to collect student's name, you're going to want to make that a required field, and then you might not need to collect the email addresses. But since we're collecting the email addresses, I don't think we need to get their names. The other thing I want to do is I'm going to say limit to 1 response. You'll also see here I have this restrict to Kingsbury Joint Junior Elementary School District users. I want to make sure that nobody outside my district is able to access this, and that goes to our privacy policy and some other things that we really don't want information about our students exposed, and then we might put in our test. We don't want that out in public information. So a couple other things we want to look at here is edit after submit. I really don't want my students going back and re-editing their responses because we're trying to do this quickly. This is a really quick assessment. I'm going to put 5 or 10 questions together, and I'm going to get a snapshot of where we're at, and then we're going to decide what we need to pursue and study further based on those responses. And then there's also an option for them to see summary charts and text responses. That allows the students to see what other students have responded and how they've responded, and you're going to see what some of the information that we receive on the back side of this, if we're going to expose that to the students. And that's up to you. If you want to do that in your classroom, that's fine. I really don't want to focus on that because my goal with this is a quick quiz. I want to see where everybody's at, if anybody's particularly falling behind, or if there's a specific question or subject matter that we've really missed and need to go back and review. That's what we're really trying to get to with this. So my presentation, I can show a progress bar. I'm doing a really short survey, so there's really no need to show a progress bar. And then there's shuffle a question order. Now, that's the thing you might want to check. I'm going to check that just because there's a temptation for students to look over and and glance at the screen on the student next to them. And especially when we have big text and a very small number of questions, I want to make sure that there isn't any sort of looking, I don't want to say cheating, but more or less cheating going on. So this is going to reduce the temptation to do that. I can do a confirmation message, not really necessary in this particular case because I'm just trying to, again, get a quick snapshot of where my student's at. Now my quizzes tab over here, I'm going to say make this a quiz. What that's going to do is that's going to allow me to assign points values to the quiz, and it'll do some automatic grading based on the correct answers that I selected, so I can really get some decent information coming back at the end. I don't have to actually grade the quizzes manually. The system's going to do that for me. So grade release, we can return the students immediately after each submission. I'm going to say now, you know what, I want to manually review them because I kind of want to see how they've done. And if a student has done really poorly on this one, I really want a chance to understand what they've done, where they've missed things before we get a response back to them, because I think that's an important part of the learning process. Is you don't want to discourage students, and they get that answer back and say, I missed 5 out of 10 of them, and I'd like to be involved in that and understand where they're at before we go and talk about what they, how they didn't necessarily do well. And then there's that comparison. How'd you do? How'd you do? We really want to avoid that because this is an assessment, and I want them to not feel like it's a competition. We can see if respondents can see missed questions, correct answers, or point values also. I want to unmark all 3 of these. Again, just my philosophy is I really want them to just answer the questions, and I want to do this for the benefit of me understanding where they're at. I can give them how they did later after that when I can control the environment, not necessarily up front. So those are the basics of how to create a quiz, and it's really super simple. So then I'm going to hit my save button here, and it should be ready to go. And at this point, I can come up here to the little eyeball and do a quick preview, and I can see what my quiz looks like. And I see Life on the Ice, Chapter 1. I'm always going to check for typos. If you catch them, I'm working on it. And then I can look at my questions here. Now I can even actually take the quiz right now as myself, and which I'm going to do, and we can actually see how those responses look in the Responses tab of our quiz. So I'm going to say which is colder, the North or South Pole, and I'm pretty sure it's the South Pole. And where is the North Pole located? I know it's just ahead of the South flagpole, because otherwise it would be the South one if it was ahead of the North one. So I'm going to hit my submit button there and say I've been responded. Now if I were to go back on here and try to enter, it says, hey, you've only filled this form out once already. Might be a mistake. So this is going to limit a single response per student. So once they've responded, they can't respond again. Now that's also required. In order to be able to do that, you actually have to require on your settings that you're going to collect the email addresses. So you need to have that. Make sure that that's selected, or else it's possible the student could submit the same quiz more than once. So as you see now in my Responses tab, I have a response, and I can see a summary of this. And what we're looking at here is just some insights. And this is very typical of Google. And what it's going to do is some total point distribution. You can see number of respondents, and then the points scored. You can see the way it's distributed. If we obviously had more, we'd see more of a better description of this. Frequently missed questions. Hey, where is the North Pole located? Hey, half of 100% of our students missed that one. So that's something that tells us about this. And again, this is really typical of Google and Google Analytics. It's going to give you summaries of this, of these sort of things. And then I can see individual scores. If I want to, I can release the scores, and it's going to send that out to the students at that time. I can actually see a breakdown of the questions, say where's the North Pole located, the correct answer here, my incorrect answer there, which is colder, the North or South Pole. You can see that in a little bit different of a view. So there's a number of different views. I think I can even copy that chart and pop that over into some documentation if I want to. Could drill down on each individual question and see information about where's the North Pole located. I can see the number of responses, number of correct, number of incorrect responses. Same thing on that one. And then I can look at each individual and say, how did I do on this particular on this test? And only one respondent here, so I can only see one. But I see, here's the wrong answers, here's the right answers, and which questions were missed. So you can see that these analytics, the backside, the information on that can be really useful, and it's not really hard to set up a quiz. So in less than 15 minutes, we've gone through creating an assessment from scratch and a quiz, and have entered responses in and taken a quick look at analyzing those responses. So hope that this is helpful to you, and encourage you as instructors and teachers to take advantage of the tools within the Google Suite. And quizzes are definitely a very helpful and powerful tool that probably get underused in the G Suite. So hope you found this helpful, and we'll be back with more blog stuff in the future.